It's been a while since I've recorded or posted anything because life gets in the way, and that happens, I guess. But I wanted to talk about one of the projects that I've made. I did post about it. I posted some things on my Instagram. It's still Knits by Casey. And today's video is we are going to go over a free pattern by Purl Soho. I think it was one of the first things I've ever knit from Purl Soho. It's a free pattern. We can really dive into the details, but it was a blanket that I wish I could have kept because I liked it so much. And we're going to go over the yarn that I used and yarn not to use, because one of them was actually a little bit disappointing in the fact that it was made from wool and still managed to pill after I washed it. But anyway, let's get into those details and let's check it out. So if you look up Colorblock bias blanket on Purl Soho, a couple of projects come up. But this is the pattern that I use. I don't think it's any different. I guess they just have different colored yarns dedicated to the pattern. But this is the page that I used when I was making my blanket. It is entirely in garter stitch, so it's really easy, and it knits up relatively fast for a blanket. It's really squishy. It didn't really require much thought. Definitely a TV knit for sure. I did not use the extra yarn to create the tassels that you see in the corners there. And so what I did, let's scroll down to the materials. Okay, so what I did, because I wanted this to be a blanket that was machine washable, I got enough yarn in different colors from, I guess, a variety of websites. We can go over that, but it was all, I tried to match the weight of the yarn to the pattern, not necessarily the fiber, because I wanted it to be all superwash. It's a blanket. It's going to be on the couch. It's going to have to be thrown into the machine. I know there's going to get food on it. I know there will be food spilt on it in the future, even though I don't have it anymore. I gave it to one of my friends. But as you can see, like, you cast on in this corner and you knit kind of diagonally, I guess. Like, the stripes are not straight. So I really didn't run into any problems in the pattern at all. Like, it was pretty straightforward. My blanket looks really similar to this, and I will show you pictures of what I made, especially when going over the types of yarn that I chose. But it's really straightforward. I knit the throw size. Yeah, it was really straightforward. Like, I don't have any issues with this pattern at all. It's very clear, very easy. Definitely a TV knit if it's a project that you want to always have and just have something that doesn't require a lot of focus. So this was the yarn that I ordered from Hobie. That's required in the beginning of the pattern, that you hold double with a worsted weight yarn, so you get like this marled look, and that portion of the blanket came out really nice. But this was the one, despite being superwash, just pilled everywhere. There were like these little pieces of black fuzz everywhere after I washed it. And of course I washed this in the machine because I felt like whoever I was going to give it to would definitely throw it in the machine. So that was the way that I washed it first initially, and there was just this little blue fuzz everywhere. And I would not recommend this if you are going to throw it in the machine. It might do fine if you wash it by hand, but in the machine, it didn't work out so well for me or this blanket. Another yarn that I used for this blanket was Drops Big Merino in Forget Me Not and Ice Blue. I didn't have any problems with it whatsoever. I think it was very similar to Valley Yarns Superwash Merino. I mean, I probably couldn't tell them apart if you asked me to, other than based off of the colors that they offer. so far, no issues with it, and it created beautiful stripes. And if it was a toss up between drops and Valley, I mean, strictly for the price, I'd probably go with drops if budget is an issue. But in terms of quality, they were practically the same. So here is the Valley Yarns, Valley Superwash wool from Webs. They have a lot of color options. I used white and classic navy, and I couldn't really tell the difference between working with this and drops. In terms of quality, very similar. If anything, it might be just a little bit more expensive. I don't really know. It could also depend on how much you order. Maybe one of their brands has a different color that you might like. But I'd honestly recommend both, and I don't have a preference of one over the other. When working with this superwash merino wool, it's very like spongy, I guess. It's very airy, it's spongy, so it created like this really squishy blanket. So I would definitely use it again. I used practically every yarn that I used on this blanket except for the one from Hobie. Last but not least, it's never a project from myself if I don't try and use Cascade Yarns 220 Superwash. I used it in white from uh, a couple balls that I had left over from the Avena sweater that I had made about a year ago, and I used Stormcloud Heather. But there is definitely a difference between the texture and how soft the merino sections were or stripes were from this 100% wool yarn. It's still superwash, but it wasn't nearly as soft as the merino. So next time I think I would just make it with the merino entirely. But if your budget is an issue, I would actually recommend this because there's much more yardage in these balls, and you also don't have to weave in as many ends. That was okay, fine. That's like my one complaint about using the 50-gram balls versus these 100 grams from Cascade Yarns is that I had to weave in a lot of ends. So that is the pattern review in a nutshell. I mean, it was super simple, super easy. I think it took me 4 or 5 months from when I started. But this is just a hobby, so it, of course, all depends on how much I have going on with life and work and whatnot. Yeah, it took me about a good 4 or 5 months to complete it. And typically, when I do knit something, like even if it's a blanket, I'll drop down the needle size by one US needle size, um, because I knit pretty loosely. No, I don't even want to say fairly loosely. I knit pretty loosely, um, for in terms of gauge. So I think that's it. We went over yarn pattern. My one complaint was weaving in too many ends, but I don't really think anyone likes that. So I will catch you next time. And oh, I'm sorry. There's one more thing that I forgot. It's my work in progress or WIP update with my Arctic Light sweater. So the gauge on the sweater is different from, I guess, typical patterns where you're supposed to make a swatch and wash it. I do have the sweater right over here. It is not a blocked swatch or gauge because the pattern says you don't have to, but this is a lot of sweater for something that hasn't been blocked yet, and this might just turn into an Arctic Light sweater dress. Is this the front? I don't know. I can't tell right now. But the sleeve is coming out beautifully. Everything is coming out so nicely. And I just feel like it's a lot of sweater for something that hasn't been blocked yet, and that's why I'm really scared. But I got gauge according to the pattern where you just need X amount of stitches in this square, and it doesn't have to be washed. But this is not washed or blocked at all. Let me see if I can put it on. I haven't tried it on. and we're only gonna be able to put one arm through. But I'm scared because I feel like this sweater is going to grow. And this is Rowan. This is Rowan. I don't even remember the name. DK. Yep, Rowan DK with paired with their mohair. Obviously, this arm's not gonna fit, but yep. I think now's a great time to start the cuff, even though I'm not nearly near the. I think it's supposed to be like 49. Well, okay, maybe a little bit more. But this was the Rowan DK. It's like 50% wool, 50% alpaca, something like that. Okay, the cat is in the yarn, and Aki's upset. Listen. All right. So now that this is all tangled up, this is what it looks like separately. Oh, okay. Okay. Stop. And now there's yarn. Cat hair everywhere. So I'm a little scared. It fits well. Also, my arm wouldn't be here, but it fits nicely. At least 50% of it does. It's just not blocked yet, and I'm a little. Well, I haven't sewn this yet either. Yeah. We're gonna work it out a little bit more, but just an update. Well, I don't know. We'll see. That'll be another video for the future. And I don't want to work on anything else while I'm working on this because this requires a lot of focus, and I kind of forgot where I left off, which made it really difficult to start this up again. But hopefully I can work on the sleeve and then start my next sweater for my friends. So, okay, now I'm gonna go.